You're tuned into the Writing Community Chat Show, the live streaming YouTube podcast that brings you the stories of authors, screenwriters, and more. Indie or established, this show's for the community, and we invite you to be a part of it. Head to the writingcommunitychatshow.com for more info. The WCCS. Together as one, we get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. Hello everybody, welcome to the Writing Community Chat Show. It's Friday night. Well done, you've survived the week and you are here tonight with us with a very special guest. I'm extremely excited to talk to today's guest. Obviously, we had a brilliant guest in the week with Alexis being on the show, and that was fantastic. And then we had a exclusive interview from Sir Tony Robinson that dropped yesterday that you can go and watch and binge watch if you like Baldrick. Though he probably hate me for saying that because he is now a professional writer and he writes books as well. He's not just a comedian. So please go and check those out. But tonight's show, we have a fantastic author. If you're into horror writing, if you're into horror/sci-fi, or just an absolutely brilliant novel, then tonight's guest ticks all of those boxes. So she's the brilliant author of Mayfly and American Rapture, which is one of my favorite books of this year that I've read. So I'm really excited to chat to her on the show tonight. And I'm sure if you're watching this now or you're listening back live, you're going to enjoy this conversation and hopefully pick up some really good tips and advice as well. So without further ado, because obviously Agat's not with us today, unfortunately, still not well. So good luck to you, Agat, on recovering. But I'm going to bring CJ Leede out because I'm really excited to talk to her. So ladies and gentlemen, the fantastic CJ Leede.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
We're very good, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us. We're really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
Brilliant. So one of the first things that we always ask our guests when they come on is where are you coming from and what's the writing scene like where you are?
I'm in Los Angeles right now. I've been kind of living on the road this year, all over. So the writing scene is literally like me with my laptop. But when I'm in LA, I do have a lot of author friends who I meet up with and write with, and it's like super groovy. I actually went out to book events every night last week, which was crazy. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, those book events can be pretty crazy. Are you drinking on those book events? Because every night in the week.
We have to. I think it's required.
Yeah, celebrate the hard work, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
So, have you got any good stories from those events that you've been to, or like fans coming up to you and things?
Well, so all the ones I went to last week were not mine, which actually is kind of like, I prefer that because then I just get to like go celebrate my friends and like be the introvert I am until we go to the bar. No, I don't know. There are tons of fun times. Stoker Con this last year. Have you ever been to a Stoker Con?
I have not, no.
It's so like if anybody doesn't know, it's kind of like this big gathering of horror authors and like booksellers, librarians, and like a handful of readers, and it's wild in the best way. It's really just like such a celebration of the community, and like it's really like bar con, like we do panels and things, but it's really about seeing everyone. So it gets pretty lively, I'll say.
Yeah, I can imagine lots of people in the comments already saying jealous about the book events and everyone's saying hello to you and stuff, which is fantastic. Hi. So, yeah, obviously with you on the road a lot with your laptop, do you find that's always been the way that you've written, or have you had to adapt to obviously how your success has sort of changed the way that you write?
So I'm on the road, I'm on the road because of the fires. So that is a little bit of like a separate thing. But in terms of I guess I've lived on the road before. I don't know. I'm so inconsistent. Like, I think like the only consistency I have is that there is none. Like for weeks, I will work 16 hours a day and not sleep. And then like, I'll take a week off and then I'll work only from 4 to 6 a.m. And then I'll work only in the evenings. it was fun being on the road this summer because I could go to things like StokerCon, I could go to like whatever. And then, I do think it's very inspiring being around other authors when you can be. And even last week, like the events I went to were Chuck Tingle, Brian McAuley was here, Alexandra Chang, who wrote a YA novel. I feel like I'm forgetting some. I've got one with Rachel Harrison next week. There's so much happening right now. Like, it's exciting. But yeah, no routines. I'm a mess. I'm a messy author. I don't know.
Brilliant. Yeah, though we love that. Conversations, like you say, instead of BookerCon being Baracon, because we've been to a few events in the UK and they are definitely like that.
That's how it should be, I think. It's like, especially because it's such a solitary craft, which I love, but like it really is fun to come together and just celebrate the fact that, especially in horror, but in most all writing, like we're just kind of like looking the beast in the eye every day. Like we're just like staring into the void by choice somehow. And so it's great to like just get to chill with your friends and kind of celebrate it.
Yeah, definitely. More of that in the book world, definitely. So, CJ, what we normally do is we play a little video, and the first part of the show is the road to writing. So we ask you to sort of tell us how writing became a thing in your life and how you got to where you are. So I'll play this little video, and then when we get back, we'll do that. So, CJ, if you can, take us back to those very first moments when you thought about writing.
My story is kind of like an odd one. So, like, I wasn't planning to be an author. I had like an open class my last semester of undergrad, and I took a writing class, and then it ended up being that I graduated, and my professor had like sent what I had written to some people in the industry who then requested full manuscripts. And I wrote a book very fast. It was like basically a very early draft of what would become American Rapture. And it was like so bad. It was the worst book ever. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I just kind of like life went on. Nothing happened with it. And I was 23. But I kept thinking back and I was like, I really liked that time when I was writing, even though that was something I never considered for my life. And I kind of couldn't get it out of my head. And then I was going back to school anyway. I had planned to, because I wanted to be a career academic, like a historian. And I thought, what if I just applied to a writing program instead? And I applied 3 times before I got in anywhere. And by the way, like nobody needs a writing program to be a writer. I feel like I always have to say it's like very important. But I went and it was awesome. And I got there and I was handing in stories and a professor said, "Okay, so you're a horror writer." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't like horror. I've never read horror in my life." And he goes, "Okay, but everything you've ever handed in is horror." So I read my first Stephen King when I was 24. And kind of like got an education and kind of gained a community in writing. It was the first time I ever really found, I feel like this is like my theme today. I don't normally talk this much about the community, but I found my community. I found my partner. Like, writers are awesome.
So how was that then? Obviously you said it was amazing going down this academic route with writing. And we've had a lot of authors on the show that have talked about taking the academic route and it taking some of the joy away, and then they had to kind of go away and then come back to it after they've been away from academia. So how did you navigate that when you were first, understanding fiction and how it's crafted and how you get certain ideas on the page? It can be quite a lot to take in. So how did you sort of manage that process, and did you enjoy it all the way through, or was there any bits there you were like, "Oh, this is not for me"?
Honestly, for me, like I loved every second. I kind of went in with like zero ego because I was like, I definitely don't know how to do this. Like I knew on day one, I was like, I need help. I want to learn this. So I think in some ways it was probably easier for me. I know like just other people in my cohort would come in and be like, I'm used to being whatever, as if there's a best. Like there's like all writing is good and it's just different. But I know there was a bit of that culture, but I didn't really experience a ton of that. Mostly, I mean, it was in the particular program I was in, it was like unfathomable to people that I was doing horror or like genre in general. So that was always kind of funny, but I loved learning. I loved getting to like experience these other writers and come across works that I wouldn't have otherwise. I loved like sort of analyzing what story means. I don't know. It just like it lights me up. It gets me going. But it was a good culture overall. It was just like I got really lucky. It was a very good vibe.
And with that, then, like obviously you talked about finding your community. What was it like to sort of share your writing with people that you knew were going to sort of pick the bones off your writing and sort of like give you tips and advice? Can you remember what that first feeling was like when you handed in that manuscript for other people to read?
I mean, you want to throw up. Like you're so, it's like terrifying. But I think of course, there are people who are assholes in this world, but in general, if you're showing up to learn how to do a thing, it's like you support other people and give them notes because it helps them, like I like getting notes on my work because I want it to be like the best that it can be. So I don't know. I liked the whole format. Seriously, our program was very like, it very much romanticized the life of the writer in a way that I just every day was like, I can't believe I get to do this. Like, I can't believe this gets to be my life. And I honestly still feel that way.
So when you said before about it being the sort of early version of American Rapture, what do you think was different about that draft that it just wasn't quite ready and it wasn't quite where you wanted it? And how did you sort of navigate that from going with that first draft to then obviously writing Mayfly, having success with that, and then going back to the idea for American Rapture?
It so drastically changed. I was very young. And with American Rapture in particular, well, first I wrote it as like dystopian YA, which is so funny. It's what I was reading at the time. And I was young, so a lot of my, like Sophie, the main character, is 16. Two of the other main characters are quite young, but the rest of them are adults. And so I think it's very difficult to write like an adult perspective when you yourself have not been an adult in this world. And I'm not even like sure I count as one now, but some of the big scenes in which the adults like really impart something to Sophie, those were the last things I wrote or rewrote. Like there's a scene in a hotel room with Cleo talking to Sophie, and what she says to her is actually the last thing I ever put in the book. And it's like, it was cool because it really took this entire like time span of a decade, I think, to be able to like tell the story the way I really needed to. And it would have been so hard to access now, that 16-year-old self. Like, I don't remember what it's like to be a teenager, and I don't want to. It was like awful. So I think it happened the way it was meant to. And then in terms of like what led to Maeve, I mean, so there was American Rapture, which was not called that until the very end. And then I wrote a whole other book during grad school, this vampire trucker novel that was like 600 pages long. And it's just sitting in a drawer. And I don't know if anything will ever come of it. But I shopped those books everywhere. Like I probably got 70 plus agent rejections on both. It was many years. And I just got to the point, it was COVID. And I was like, okay, this may or may not be happening for me, but like I love writing. So I just wrote like my Screw It book, and that sold very quickly. And I was extremely lucky, and it kind of changed everything. So it's kind of like, on the one hand, you look back and you think like, oh God, I didn't need to be so miserable for so long. But on the other hand, if I hadn't been that miserable, I could not have been in the headspace to write Maeve. So I think for me personally, it kind of feels like it just all happens when and how it's meant to.
Yeah. No, Halo says, hell yeah, for screw it books. So how was your writing process during those books that you were sort of trying to get off the ground, and you had an original idea and then you moved on to your screw it book? What was your writing process like in those moments, and how has that changed over the course of time for you?
I think it changes all the time for me. So both the vampire book and American Rapture, I probably started from a blank page, like, I don't know, 15 times, maybe more, each. Like I just knew, I think I just was still learning how to write a book, and they were also like, other than Maeve, I actually write pretty complicated like road trip narratives. And so it's a lot of moving pieces, and I don't necessarily like read or watch what I write. So like I didn't really like pandemic things or like apocalyptic things, and I had to go like get an education on that, which was great. um I think what I'm learning, I just finished my third book. We're now in copy edits, so it's finally off. um my third published one, I should say, fourth book. I think that what I'm learning is that each book kind of like really demands something different. And like with Maeve, I would sometimes like close the curtains and pour whiskey in the middle of the day, and just like I found myself like moving at night mostly, like I would go out for like pre-sunrise walks. And there's something about that book that just, I needed that. And only listen to certain types of music, and only sort of like interacted with people in a certain way. With American Rapture, I ended up kind of like revisiting places that were kind of difficult for me younger, and having to really confront a lot of like, like young person wounds and truths and things. And it seemed to require a bit more like sensitivity and like, I don't know, I had to be kind of gentle with myself in a way that obviously Maeve is a very different. I don't know. I think every book kind of demands its own like care routine, feeding and nurturing and whatever that looks like. So I think I quote this all the time, but I had a professor who once said, like, you never learn how to write a book. You only learn how to write the book you're working on right now. And I think like that's so true. It's just like I don't know how to write a book. I'm relearning every time.
No, it's fascinating. Again, lots of people in the comments. Halo again says my whole life is a script, which is brilliant.
Love that.
But yeah, and Anya says as well, Professor gives good advice. Yeah, that is good advice. So with that in mind, like, what's a good day for you writing wise? And obviously you talked about, needing to do different things for different books, but do you have like a set goal when you sit down at the laptop and think, do you know what, I need to do this today in order to be consistent? And obviously if you've written like 600-page book that is just sat on a shelf, for some people that would be like, oh God, this is infuriating, I'm not going to stop until this gets out in the world. But obviously you just cracked on and written another book, and that seems to be your process. So what is a good day for you? What are you happy with at the end of the day?
I think when I'm, there's so many different, like when you get on the cycle of publication, which I'm lucky to be on, very lucky. Like I do have days now that I do just only promotion or like interviews or social media or like organizing events or any of those kind of things. So those times exist. More like clerical and administrative kind of stuff. And then there are editing days. Editing is when I'm like, I don't sleep, I don't see people, I barely take care. I've become like a full like cave troll. And it's not, I actually am like probably unhealthy about it, but like I won't sleep. I have to get it done. And then the writing is my favorite, like the initial drafting. And that I'll do like, I'll plot the book for like about a week. Sometimes it takes longer. With Maeve, it took like 2 days. And then I try for like 10 pages a day, something roughly like that. It's kind of like if you do 10 pages a day, 5 days a week, it's 200 pages in a month. It's like pretty good. But I'm like a vomit draft writer. I don't get precious about sentences. I don't get precious about anything. And I just figure like getting the thing done in the first place is the hard part. And then going back and seeing what works and what doesn't is that can come later. I should say there's a book I really like that I actually really like utilize a lot anytime I'm stuck. It's called Anatomy of Story by John Truby, and there are like exercises all through it. They can be quite tedious to actually do, but every time I'm stuck, I pull it out and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll try it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's exactly what I needed. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I love that. It was good. That was partly leading on to my next question, actually, because we have a lot of people who watch the show and listen to the show that are writers themselves or are looking to start writing. So what would your advice be to them? And what do you wish that you now know that you knew at the start of your writing journey?
I think the one thing I had going for me coming into like being a writer is that I read so much, and I was reading dystopian YA when I was in my early 20s, but I mean like, minimum 100 books a year. And I think if there's something you like, personally, I feel like it's very useful to consume as much of it as you can, and find your favorite book and say, what do I think makes this book really special? What's really working about this? And then part of what I like in those Truby exercises is that he kind of has you like, or you could, if you wanted, take your favorite book and kind of like break down the structure of it and see exactly how it functions so that you can start to say, oh, okay, I could use those same or similar building blocks and then, tell my own story through it. And I think that's very useful. And then as far as just like fortitude, like I would just say like, in the best possible way, being miserable like is a part of this job. And I think to expect otherwise can lead to like existential crises that I think are unnecessary. Like you're alone all day, you are creating entire worlds full of characters who have like wants and needs and histories and fears and whatever else, and often conflicting wants, you hope, right? And you're creating like all these rules. It lights up like every part of your brain at once. And you're alone doing it. So you're creating these worlds and living in them completely separate from anything else happening in your life. It's hard to do. It takes a lot of energy. People have jobs and kids and animals and responsibilities. And so like, I just think you got to be like prepared for moments in which you think, why am I doing this? Is this ever going to get easier? And, the querying process is horrible. It is brutal, and I don't think it should be as hard and demoralizing as it is, but it is. And then, like, one day it's done, and somebody says yes. And it's like, it's so cliche, but it really only takes one yes. Even with Maeve, I couldn't get a book agent. I found a manager here in LA through meeting someone at a bar, or someone else met someone at a bar, and he saw an Instagram post of mine. And he helped me find an agent. But even with Maeve, only one agent wanted to be a part of it. And it really just takes one person and he was somebody, by the way, who had passed on one of my other books. So you just like never know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, it only takes one person to take that chance, and then your whole career can take off. Definitely.
Yeah.
Love that. So exactly. And time is flying. So we are going to get over to the second part of the show, which is what's the story. So when we get back from this video, CJ, what I'm going to ask you to do is give us the elevator pitch for American Rapture. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. I'll play this little video and then we'll get into what's the story. So CJ, take it away. Can you give us the elevator pitch for American Rapture, please?
Yes. A very sheltered 16-year-old Catholic girl in the Midwest begins to come into her sexual awakening at the same time as America explodes with a violent, sexually propagating viral epidemic. And she has to cross the state to reach her family and like stay alive and learn about the world very quickly, and also sort of grapple with these feelings that are beginning inside her, which may or may not be a sign of illness, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant elevator pitch there. And if you've not read it, you definitely need to go and get a copy of this book. I was kind of, as soon as I saw the cover, I was like, this is going to be a book I'm going to enjoy. And then I started hearing people talking about it in terms of like, there was The Stand was mentioned, and there was like American Gods from the critical side of the take on America, and then the whole religious aspect of it as well. I was like, yeah, I need this book. As soon as this comes out, I'm getting it. And it doesn't disappoint. It's absolutely brilliant. If any of those things sound like your cup of tea, even just one of them, you need to go and pick up American Rapture. So with that in mind, obviously you talked before about having the initial idea, but it wasn't quite ready. What did you sort of tweak out in the version that we have now that you didn't have previously? I know you briefly mentioned about the sort of coming of age and being able to write from a different perspective, but was there things that were always in your mind that have stayed, and things that maybe have disappeared as a result of you coming back to it at a later stage?
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for your kind words. I think religion, there are a few things we can talk about. You know, like I did find it hard to narrow it down. I had at one point more of a possession element in the story, and my editor was like, "Why are we going over here? Like, I get it, but we don't need to. That's not this book." And she was right. So there's a lot like that. I ended up like really rounding out in particular, like the parents later on, or at least like the mother and her story. Like I ended up adding quite a bit to that later. And I revisited a lot of these places. If you do happen to read the book, and if you're ever like in the American Midwest, like I highly recommend going to House on the Rock, which is an American Gods too, but all these places, the Cheese Castle is real, although it's in a different spot than I put it. But there are just kind of amazing, like very, very American locations that I think it's like the double billboard image. I use it a lot through the book, but I think it's like the perfect metaphor for America when talking about these things, which is like we always have like a billboard on the side of the highway that'll say like XXX store this exit, or that will advertise some kind of like adultery dating app, or I don't know, whatever, like have an affair. And then you'll have one right below it or next to it or behind it that's like sinners go to hell, Jesus saves, there's only one, blah blah blah. So those two billboards side by side is like American culture to me. It's like we teach our young people that their whole value and worth lies in their sexuality, but like it's also their greatest sin and shame, and they have to like cover it up and repress it in order to not like incite violence against them or any unwanted attention or anything else. So it turns out 10 years later I still had things to say about that. But did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, definitely. Halo says that's so accurate. It's funny you should mention that billboard scene, because that obviously does stick out in my mind when Sophie's, I'm not going to give too much away, but stranded in a difficult situation. And she does look at those billboards. And again, I'm not going to go into it too much, but exactly what you just said there about the contrast between the two sort of messages really does stand out. So I suppose the question from a writing front is like, obviously you've got so much in American culture to talk about, and this book does feel a little bit like a critique of a lot of American culture. So how did you decide to what you were going to sort of critique in that respect, and what you were kind of going to leave out, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think I tried to keep to, and I kind of kept it to like obviously a fictionalized version, but like something closer to my experience, which is
Mm.
just like I grew up very Catholic, not anywhere near as sheltered as Sophie, and I had I would say probably much better parents, but the church when I was a kid, and I know it's a lot of people, it works for a lot of people, but like I was terrified all the time in
Mm.
childhood and even like getting into adulthood, of this idea that any thought that I ever had or question or anything was heard by like God, Jesus, angels, demons, devil, and also there were consequences for any thought. um, I think that is like, for me, it was a very difficult way to move through the world because we are imperfect humans who have all kinds of thoughts and certainly sexually. And it's just to feel that there's something inherently wrong with you for, having any sort of thought. And then also that it's kind of like recorded somehow in this like indelible way in the universe and there's going to be great consequence. I think it's not to be too heavy-handed about it, but I think it's a beautiful way to subdue people and also to kind of lessen their power and also reinforce the idea that they might need to then go to a father, a priest, a bishop, whoever, all the way to the top, right? But you're not absolved on your own. So, yeah, it was kind of that hierarchical structure that I was trying to kind of speak about and say that maybe ultimately with this book, I'm saying this like life is hard and we live with mortality, and that is like a cruel and difficult thing. And sin and shame are not really maybe things that we need to spend our time on because maybe like they don't need to exist. So that's what I chose to focus on. But yeah, America's a broad topic. We have a lot going on here. And my kind of project as a writer is like, I do kind of want to catalog this place in whatever way I can. And I'm kind of moving through state by state right now. So we'll see if I can pick up my pace a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, definitely sounds exciting. Halo again says, ex-Catholic guilt is stronger than vodka. Yeah, definitely feel that. With this book, CJ, like I've read a few books recently that have been like, and I say this in the best way, difficult reads in parts because they're so brutal. Like I read a book called Crooked Little Vein that I thought, wow, this is like a writer just not holding back on a page. But some of the scenes in American Rapture, even just talking about it now, I'm seeing them again. And I remember reading them thinking, whoa, that is brutal. Like in terms of the sort of level of unease that you create in the reader when obviously they're fearful for Sophie in the situations that she's in. And then when you think some writers go into it and you think they're not going to describe that, there'll be a little cutaway scene, and then no, you just go full in. So I suppose my question in and around this is like, how do you do that? How do you write horror in such a convincing way and not necessarily pull back and leave it to the reader's imagination? How do you describe it and do it so well?
I don't know, because everything scares me. I think there is truth to that. I mean, I think I grew up afraid of the world, but also like like anyone with an imagination. I mean, like I have nightmares. I think for whatever reason, I also don't talk about this a lot, but I have I like diagnosed OCD. And so like it's thinking of like the worst possible thing that could happen in any given moment is like very easy for my brain to do, which is very lucky for this job, because that's basically what it is like, what's the worst thing that could happen to my characters right now? And I find it to be a very like cathartic, useful way to channel that kind of thinking so that I can kind of move through my life in a more like balanced way and not be thinking that so much when I leave the house or whatever else.
Mm. Yeah, and with the virus, obviously that's going through this book, obviously it's very unique in terms of what it does to people and how they react. So I suppose my question is, what made you go down that route, as opposed to having just the sort of standard zombie mode, or trying to eat you, rather than obviously what happens in American Rapture?
I think it just kind of made sense to me, right? Like part of the fear with sexuality when you're growing up and anytime is like illness, right? And then, within the church, the idea of like desire as a sort of illness too. And so I started reading about a lot of like sexually transmitted diseases and infections. And like, interestingly, with syphilis, it's been a long time since I did this research, so I might sound like a total idiot now. But I was finding things about like brain lesions, and obviously any kind of issue in your brain is can affect behavior.
Mm,
I liked the idea that in syphilis there can be a hand rash,
mm,
and obviously like stigmata, it's pretty on the nose, but it was like it was fun kind of playing with these ideas. And obviously a virus just wants to stay alive like anything else. So the idea of a sexually propagating virus like did make sense to me, and assault is probably a lot of people's, one of their greater fears.
mm,
So it was just a way to externalize like all of the sort of terrifying things about like learning to be a human in a human body when you're that age, and to interact with other humans with human bodies and think like, do I have control over my own? Might someone try to overpower me? What do I want? What do I not want? Like all of that is really terrifying, and especially growing up in like certain religious settings. So I just
mm,
sort of made it the monster externally that I think it already kind of is internally.
mm. And again, with this book, obviously, Sophie, it, it's kind of a coming of age novel as well. So how do you do that as a writer, in terms of like drip feeding that evolution of a character over a number of pages, and knowing like, oh, she needs to experience this to develop a little bit more here, and this is a good moment for me to expand her horizons here, and she's going to learn this from this moment, and she's going to feel more confident about herself, and she's going to realize like she can do it and she can do these things. How do you navigate that as an author?
That's a good question. I just think it's by feel, you
Mm,
know? I think that's, at least for me, that the pacing, and that's the one part that I don't know that I get particularly like academic about. Uh,
mm,
it's like when you close your eyes and you just sort of like extend invisible feelers. Like that's kind of that feeling to me. I like that part. I like kind of um, moving things around. Uh, but editors help and beta readers help, and I think every now and then like somebody on my team or something will read and be like, okay, this just came out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, oops, okay. And then I find it easier and easier to figure out where to seed things early on. But I
mm,
do, to that just grain of salt, like I get criticized by readers who don't like my work, that I have slow beginnings of my books. But I personally just aesthetically like that. Like I like reading books that sort of have a slow, I shouldn't say slow, have a longer build up to the big action.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say right away, those readers are wrong. It's not not slow. um, one of the key values, obviously, that you have in the book is Sophie's love that she has for her brother, and what she's willing to do in order to reignite with him. And again, not going to go into any spoilers, but why was like family love such a big thing that you wanted to include, and obviously sibling relationships as well?
Well, I am an only child, or I have step siblings now, but I didn't growing up have any siblings. And so for me, that always seemed like some kind of like beautiful thing. But I think in general, from a craft perspective, I think it's very important for a protagonist or any character to have things that they love. I personally am not interested in writing like nihilistic characters. Like even Maeve, like really has things that she loves and cares about. Because I'm like a very passionate person, and I like passionate people, and I'm interested in someone if they're interested in whatever they're interested in. So for Sophie, I needed her to have something to live for and to fight for, and somebody you love who sees you and who is kind of like potentially your partner in like a difficult situation, which would be growing up in their house together. I mean, what more is that, or what more is there than that in this world, So I gave her kind of an ally and someone to like cheer her on from afar a little bit, I think, and someone to love, because she didn't really get the opportunity in her upbringing to like love too much besides like him and books.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Love that. Right. So again, we're flying for it, but we're going to go to the final part of the show, which is community question time. So there's plenty of people watching. If you've got questions for CJ, please send them in, because the next 20 minutes is when we're going to ask those. So I'm going to play this quick little video, and then we will ask some of those questions. So CJ, I'm going to ask a few staple questions while the questions come in. And one of the first staple questions that we have on the show is, if you could take any character from fiction and make that character your own, which character would you choose and what would you do with them?
I would love at one point to write any kind of Star Trek novelization, and any original series character I would have a ball with.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. That's a good answer. We've never had that before. Star Trek. Yeah, no, I mean, was it Amazon recently that produced a new series? Or maybe.
Here's the best thing about Trek is like there's literally always like 2 or 3 series at any given time playing. It's amazing. There's always more.
Exactly. Lots of people saying again, yes, Star Trek. So lots of fans of that. Again, send your questions in now, because this is just time that we can ask those questions directly to CJ. Another question that we have that's a staple is, if you could change the ending to any fiction, what would you change the end to, and what would you do with it?
I recently saw a movie that was very good and doesn't need to change, and they did a great job, and so just whatever that's worth. Alien Romulus, did you see it?
I haven't seen it
when
yet.
It came out like last year. I thought it was so good. I'm spoiling. I mean, it's the ending.
By the way, it's been out for a year.
I thought it was perfect. Whoever worked on it, if you like ever come across this, you crushed it. If I were doing a similar story, there's this amazing alien human, spoiler, everyone, okay? But there's this amazing like alien human hybrid that comes about, and it becomes clear that it is probably going to be like the big baddie of the universe. Like, this is the pinnacle. This is the top of the food chain. And I think that just should have been the ending. But there's a victorious human ending, because that's typically how those movies go. But I just thought it was the best like final boss we possibly could have. And I'm okay with a not happy ending.
Nice. Yeah.
Personally.
We don't always need to beat the final boss. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good answer. So we have got some questions coming in. They all seem Star Trek related at the minute.
Let's go.
Which is great. But who would you go drinking with? And I'm probably going to but Klingons, Romulans, and Baragons, is that right?
Romulans and Bajorans. Klingons for sure. I don't want to eat the worms, but like, they're the best time of everyone.
Brilliant. And again, we have another question about Star Trek. So Star Trek episode, favorite Star Trek episode, and why is it in the light?
Amazing question. Impossible to pick favorites, but I do love obviously like Arena in the original series is really great. And then there was a kind of response to Arena called Dawn. I think it was called Dawn in Enterprise, that is so underrated and is really, really great. And is another one of those sort of like interspecies communication, amazing episodes, I think.
Yeah, and this is from CJ Agate. So he is he is the host of the show, but he's unwell enough to appear on the screen. But he's still chipping in with some questions. So he said, "Who would be your horror idol to write a book with?"
If she were alive, Anne Rice. Also like Stephen King, obviously. Also, I hope you feel better.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting something else there, but yeah, Stephen King's still knocking around, so you never know. You might have time to.
Yeah. Maybe, you never know. I got a lot of good horror writer friends these days. I wonder if we'll ever end up, any of us, collaborating on something.
So from your like inner circle of horror writer friends, then, if we expand the question a little bit, if you had to write with one of them, let's say you did a Mary Shelley thing and you went away for the weekend and your publisher said, you've got a weekend, you need to bash out a book, who would your partner in crime be in that moment?
Can I pick two?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I write and hang out with Liz Karen and Chuck Tingle a lot. So nice. I think we could, the three of us, come up with something pretty wild.
Nice, brilliant, love that. So again, keep your questions coming in. These have been great. Obviously, ask about American Rapture as well, because that would be good. I know we mentioned Star Trek, but
there are horror Star Trek episodes too. You know, beautiful writing in that show.
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool. One of those staple questions that we have is a little bit morbid, but you're on your deathbed. You're looking back at your writing career. What would you be happy with? What is success to you?
I don't know if this is the most annoying answer ever, but like, honestly, I feel like I've got it. You know, like I get to, I have experienced what it feels like to walk into bookstores and see my books on shelves. And that to me is like all there is, you know. Feel like nothing beats that feeling. I will say, if anyone's like on this journey, all the things sort of change, and things that I thought would be like so would feel a certain way maybe don't, or you know, but the one thing that never gets any less and never feels like work and never feels like anything other than just this miraculous, wonderful thing is getting to see my book on shelves. And it, in this many, I mean, I guess it's only been published for a few years, but it hasn't gone away yet.
No, definitely. And when you're writing such brilliant books, it's definitely not going to go away anytime soon. Ross Young, thank you for this question. What is your personal worst horror? And is it normal to be frightened of ET? Thanks, Ross.
Something. I'm afraid of ET, and I was just talking about this with Liz Karen the other day. Yeah, no, like really scared me.
Yeah. So, and that's why you said that question, because I've said multiple times on the show, I was terrified of ET.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've still not been able to watch it as an adult. And it freaks me out. Like,
freaks me out too. I think I feel sad for him in a way, you know, like I almost think like that's the thing with fear, is like it gets so tied up with the other feelings. That's so funny. Personal worst horror. I mean, I'm not just saying this because we're like talking about American Rapture, but like possession stuff has always been very, very frightening to me. Like sort of losing control over your mental state and your body is not my favorite.
With that, an American Rapture, one of the scenes that I keep coming back to is obviously your parents are meant to protect you, and that scene early doors, and again, I'm not going to go into it, but it really did stick with me, and I'm all day I've been thinking about that scene, because obviously I knew this interview was coming up as well, and I was like, yeah, just that having that idea that the people who are supposed to protect you in your home maybe don't protect you so much, and even worse, like you said before, in terms of what's the worst thing that can happen. If you'd have asked me a million times what's the worst thing that can happen, I would have never thought of that with that idea and what happened.
Really? To me, that's like the worst. I mean, I think none of us are exempt from. I think what I was trying to say is that we're all human beings in these incredibly fallible human bodies, and so we're all susceptible to most of the same things, and we're all like equally imperfect, including our parents, which is terrifying. And yeah, that scene is I won't spoil it.
No, don't spoil it. It's worth reading. Go and read it. Ross says we're both wrong for being afraid of ET, but Ross, there's multiple scenes in that film that are absolutely terrifying. The one where he's running through the cornfield being chased, the one where he's in the bath, like they are just, pinnacle scenes.
You know what movie like really scares the shit out of me that's not supposed to be scary is Willy Wonka.
Oh yeah, he's creepy.
I don't like it at all. Any of it really makes me uncomfortable. Yeah,
and then Tim Burton did it with Johnny Depp and just tried to elevate the creepiness. I'm like, don't need that, Tim. It's already.
We had it already. Also, like everything about that movie was insane, but the grandparents just sort of like staying in the bed, like bossing everyone around. I mean, the whole thing was just crazy.
Yeah, who needs horror when you got Roald Dahl? So this is another question from Anya. If your main character, so Sophie from American Rapture, was against Katniss in a competition, your choice of competition, who would win?
Katniss would win everything unless it had to do with like being bookish. That is literally the only thing that Sophie would win. Katniss is tougher.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying about clowns as well. Clowns being scary. That is a factor. And yeah, Ross has also said, but yeah, a lot of Roald Dahl is horror. Adult shorts are very terrifying. Yeah, they absolutely are. So with horror in mind, then obviously you mentioned briefly, I don't know how much you can talk about this, but your next book is written. You talked about going on an American roadshow, perhaps. Can you give us any sort of insight into that without going too much into detail?
Yeah, I'm like officially allowed to talk about it as of like a couple weeks ago, so this is exciting.
Brilliant.
It's called Headlights, and it is my Colorado winter book. Ghosts, cannibals, detective novel. Has a lot. I guess I could like kind of people start to come to consciousness on the side of the highway, naked, barefoot, and wearing the skin of someone they've never met, with no memory of how they got there, and with a hair tied around their tongues. And our main character is the detective who has to come back and finally solve the case, maybe.
Wow. I mean, that sounds terrifying, but also amazing in the same breath. I can't wait for that. Brilliant. We love an exclusive on the show. And it's not an exclusive because you've been allowed to talk about it for 2 weeks, but
I talked about it better here. Yeah. This was the
best version of it yet so far. People again say the same thing. Well, that sounds a whole lot of WTF, but brilliant at the same time. Also sounds epic. So yeah, really looking forward to that as well.
Thank you. I hope people like it. It's tonally very different. I have a male protagonist. Like we kind of, I just wanted to kind of do something totally new. So I'm curious to see how it will be received by readers.
Do you have any fear then, obviously, with the success that you've had so far, when you're releasing the next book, does it sort of play on your mind? Because obviously you talked about the OCD aspect and worst things that can happen. Does that often come out when you're just about to release a new book or you've handed it in? It
did with Mayfly and American Rapture, but I think now it's like anything. It's just you get more comfortable with it. I think now you'll see if you read the third book, it's about some really big ideas, more than the other two. And I was dealing with a lot of grief stuff just from my personal life that I kind of was working out in this book. And I think for me, just getting to finish this one, like, felt so good. And I feel pretty at peace with, like, everyone's going to have their favorite and least favorite, right? And if you're putting out a book a year, which I am supposed to the next however many years, it's just at a certain point, you just got to, like, move on and just hope that it resonates with someone, because that's kind of the ultimate, that's the dream.
Yeah, absolutely. Halo says, you say cannibalism, I say take my money. And Ross says, you say take my money, I say take my kidneys.
I'll take it all.
Yeah, just take the lot. Brilliant. No, I absolutely love that, and it sounds amazing. Obviously, I think a question off the back of that, then, you're talking about the idea of doing this American road trip, and you've talked about having more ideas and more things that you're going to try and discuss. We had somebody on the show, it was actually at Harrogate, and we were interviewing somebody. I can't remember, Chris, if you're still watching in the chat, let me know who it was. But she lived in America, and she said that the landscape and the things that are happening, you kind of see the novels that are about that time in about 5 years' time. So have you got ideas that are sort of going around your mind from what you're experiencing at the moment that you think, oh, I'm definitely going to have a little look at that in the future?
I think that in terms of, like, what's happening in our country, I think it's all going to be in every book a little bit. My third book has to do with ecosystems and the ways in which we interact, and the national parks and all of that, and land development. I think it's always going to be everywhere. In terms of, like, looking at it head on, it's a pretty rough time over here. We're probably, like, as divided as we've ever been. And I think it's kind of like we have whiplash every day, so in terms of, like, being able to really write about it, I think she's probably right, and probably it does kind of show up 5 years later. I don't know that I would be conscious of doing it, but it is such, I mean, it's like the air that we're breathing, it's everywhere. It's where we are.
Yeah. Attica Lock, thank you. I get that's who it was. Yeah, Attica Lock. So yeah, is there anything that you've thought about writing that you have not yet written, that's sort of like, Stephen King said this himself, I think, when he was attempting The Stand the first time round, that he didn't feel he was ready for it. He had the idea, but he didn't kind of know how to put it together, and he wasn't ready for it. Is there a book out there for you that's like on the back burner because you've thought of the idea, it's really good, but you're just not ready yet?
I've got one. So I'm kind of going state by state. My Oregon book is definitely, like, I think I need to mature a bit to finish it, but also it's another behemoth, which my second and third are, so I need a little break from that. But the Vampire Trucker book I wrote before too, which is my Massachusetts book, if I were to revisit, it's like I need to be in a certain headspace to do it, but one day I want to. But that's my big, if there were, like, one singular head-on America book, that's the one. So I think I'm going to go back to it one day. And that's, like, 3 perspectives. It's a big book.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it does sound amazing. Vampire Trucker book. I'm pretty sure we talked about vampires at some point on the show in recent weeks, and we have mentioned that idea because you've got that whole the trucker narrative running through it. Sounds brilliant. We're up for it. And that's what Halo says as well. Vampire Trucker book sounds awesome if you ever excavate it. So we hope that you do, because I remember reading one of your reviews actually for American Rapture before I read it, and they said this book was amazing. The only thing that disappoints me is that CJ is early on in a career and there's not a whole backlog for me to devour.
I gotta pick it up. I think I need to start just doing a lot of drugs or something. Also, I'm sorry. Speaking of, I've been, like, mainlining coffee today, so if I was a little, like, chaotic, I apologize. But I've enjoyed talking.
No, it's been perfect. Thank you. So before you go, we've just got about 40 odd seconds or whatever. Can you just tell people where they can find you on all the socials and where they can pick up American Rapture?
Yeah, Instagram is best. My handle is Siege the Moment, and American Rapture is. I think it's everywhere. There is in the UK the special edition that I think everyone can order from Black Crow Books. If you haven't seen it, it's unbelievable. Like sprayed edges, like art on the end pages. This like really kind of incredible faded American flag. It's killer. And yeah, if you're in the States, I'm about to do 8 or 9 tour stops for the paperback release on Tuesday.
Brilliant. We have a lot of listeners from the States. So if you're in and around, go and pick that up. And we'd love to see your little videos or your little pictures of you picking up American Rapture or meeting CJ, because that'd be great. Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to end the show there. Hopefully I get it right, because I played the exit video twice last week. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, CJ. We're very much looking forward to more things from you in the future. And yeah, everyone's saying lots of really good things as well. So thank you, everybody. And we will see you at the same time next week. Anything else, CJ?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is the bit then where we just wave and then the video plays. Bye.